I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Detrick. Jordan Redaelli is on vacation. And Andrew Kuo, after several days off, takes no days off. Andrew, are you well rested?
Not only well rested, I'm ripped, Ben. I've been lifting weights non-stop since we last potted. Incredible physical transformation.
So even besides the pod, you are rising and grinding anywhere.
Oh yeah, it's I rise and grind on the pod. I rise and grind with weightlifting, and that's about it.
So we stopped doing the daily podcasts, not because we don't love our listeners or because our voices are not required on a daily basis. It was mostly out of, I guess, respect for the Blue Angels, the flyover. You know, how do you compete with that kind of patriotic showmanship? It just was beyond our capacity.
We're just a bunch of Larry Birds trying to hit 30% from three. And here comes Michael Jordan flying over our heads with a slammer-jammer. And yesterday we heard a rumbling in the apartment, and it was the damn Blue Angels. And I'm not talking about Alonzo Trier.
The flyover was visible from my window twice. I don't know exactly their route, but I saw them zipping northward, and then I saw them coming back southward. Like, all right, it was kind of cool. There were some fighter planes in formation. I don't know how many there were. It was like, I don't know, 5 or 7, and they did that in 2 little phalanxi. But what were we supposed to do with that?
I thought it was kind of cool. I know there was, in our scene, there was a big pushback. Like, look at those chemtrails. Couldn't we spend that millions of dollars it took to do that and giving it away? Absolutely, yes. But people do stupid things for the sake of symbols and morale, and I don't think our president is good at manufacturing any of that. But hey, he tried. I don't want to get worked up over a bunch of jets. Like, they fly over baseball games and whatever, Olympic stuff, like whatever, man.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I do not have outrage that some money was spent flying airplanes over New York. I mean, is it the best use? Is it how I would have done it? No. But also, my understanding is that this was like $80,000, right?
Yeah.
It was not actually like 20 million or something. That's right. If it was 20 million, yes, that was a poor usage of $20 million. That was like, 2/3 of Tobias Harris's contract. Like, that's big money.
I could buy you a bunch of Tobai.
Like 2/3 of a Tobai. More like 3/5 of a Tobai.
Wow, 1/8 of a net zero?
I mean, he makes $35 million a year, so I mean, you're actually talking about almost like half a Tobai, really.
We got to the bottom of that.
But it was $80,000. Come on, man, they blow $80,000 on lunch.
Dude, like, the defense spending is hilarious. It's like, okay, we can't account for $21 trillion, but we have a cool army. I'm like, that's just the way America is, I guess. It's like, who's gonna get to the bottom of that? No idea.
$80,000 to the Pentagon is like a gorilla bin full of like wrenches.
Remember that 60 Minutes episode where they went through defense spending and they walked through like, okay, how much does this soap tray cost? It's like, it says here it's like $30. I'm like, how did this happen? I'm like, they list a price, we pay them, and then we get stuff. I'm like, oh, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so $80,000 to have planes fly around for 20 minutes?
Bargain.
Yeah, sure, great.
It's a discount Blue Angel experience, man.
It's like free.
Yeah. Basically, it pays for itself. It's good for the exposure of the Blue Angels, though. Like, I know they're not getting paid specifically. They're doing it for cost, $80,000, but it's good for exposure.
I mean, what's Tobias Harris making? $400,000 a game.
Is he? Are NBA players getting pay cuts though? Did that actually happen?
Not yet, but probably, right?
I mean, for the rest of the season, aren't their paychecks smaller, and they're going to figure it out later?
I don't know how they're doing it. If it's like, well, I know that the guys who had their guaranteed money already got their real money, I believe, right?
Rich Paul?
Yeah. But whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Psyched on the Blue Angels, whatever. Planes are kind of magical. I wish there were a bunch of UFOs, to be honest, but we can't have everything.
This thing, UFOs exist. We knew that. We
Yes.
knew there are things that they did not identify. It doesn't mean they're spaceships. It doesn't mean they're aliens. It means there are things that they have not identified.
Yeah. And even thinking of them as spaceships doesn't blow our mind anymore because we've gone through like 100 years of assuming this was a possibility. I'm convinced cephalopods are aliens and mushrooms, so I'm down for this idea.
I just don't have this specific enthusiasm / suspicion that aliens are being kept from us. I'm like, if aliens were visiting us, it would not be something you would have been able to keep under wraps.
Yeah.
Especially over like the last, I don't know, 15 years when every single person has a camera and we haven't had anything. Nothing showed up.
My favorite idea is if there is extraterrestrial stuff happening around us, it's like, oh, your eyes can't see this. Your cameras can't pick up what I'm doing. On my planet, yeah, everyone sees this, but like, you can't handle my frequency when I talk. You guys have bad ears, you know? I think that's kind of a cool idea. Like, oh, there's an alien sitting right next to you at the game. You just can't see them because they don't occupy space and don't register in our eyes.
I mean, I'm more into like simulation theory than aliens.
That's my wish, that I wake up after I die and someone's just like, whoa, you were out for an hour. How's the game? I'm like, I lived a worthless life.
I don't know.
I did
saw
nothing.
CJ McCollum pulled up for a mid-range jumper, and the rest is a blur.
Yeah, right. It was Dame Dollar, and then the rest just went black. Yeah, that's my favorite. That's my favorite idea. Actually, it's a religion. We can qualify that as a religion.
I'm very into theories that are insane, that are vast, that have no impact on anything.
Yeah.
Now, when you believe in a deity who wants you to do certain things and will reward you with the afterlife, like that could affect how you live. That could affect what you do. But saying this is a simulation, how does that change anything? Oh, not at all. I'm like, cool, I buy it. Great theory. Great theory.
Drive you to nihilism a little bit, right? Like, oh, it's all pre-planned, so nothing I do really matters. I just will do what I do, which is science fiction.
I don't really associate the idea of a simulation with fatalism, though. I think it's more that
it's not fatalist, but it's like it's powerless, right?
See, no, I think it's like if we're going to equate it to a video game, it's like, you're playing the video game. It's a choose your own adventure, and what happens to you happens to you. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because none of it's real, but you don't know that in the game anyway.
Yeah, the science fiction rule would be you think you have choices. I mean, this has been in movies forever. You think you have choices, but the choices have been planned out for you. And every time it's Matt Damon trying to be like, well, I don't want to be a politician. I want to chase that girl. Like, someone has gone against the program, Tron was like that a little bit, but
I just am worried that we're going to expose it being a simulation, and then whoever is running the simulation is going to pull the plug.
Do they fly aircraft that don't obey physical laws on our planet?
That's what I'm saying. Are we going to fly a little too close to the sun? Style.
Are they in the band Blink-182, and have they been right all along?
When your Sim City starts looking back at you.
Did you guys realize what Animal Crossing was? That was the writer, man.
Yeah, so we're all sick of... people have been saying my pronunciation of COVID is incorrect. And that's true, but it's more of a Spanish influence.
COVID.
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 And I will say I looked up some Spanish language newscasts, and they kind of say COVID. So, that's the kind of cross-cultural influence that the Cookies Hoops influential podcast has.
There's always going to be pronunciation cops, right? The GIF thing is still a useless conversation. Tomato, tomato, potato, potato. I'll have some mashed potatoes, please. You know what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, look, I say everything wrong, so whatever. It's my job.
It is your job. You said Knicks legend Alonzo's last name is Trier. I knew who the hell you were talking about.
I don't know if it's Trier or Trier. I don't even know.
I've heard Trier, but Reggie Bullock really threw me for a loop. I was like, Bullock? That's cool.
The only one that I get correct now is Ariana Grande.
Oh, yeah, I said grande, like a latte.
We all did, but it's actually Grande, as she said herself. So now I get that one correct because I went to the source. From thus far, COVID has not told me how it wants to be pronounced.
How do you say Zendaya, Zendia?
I would say it wrong. I'd probably say Zendaya.
You're correct. According to her on YouTube, she pronounces her name Zendaya. Wait, what'd you say?
Zendaya?
Oh,
Zendaya?
It's wrong. You're wrong.
I've already forgotten. I think that's the problem. I immediately forget and then just approach it as if it's a novel coronavirus every single time.
We discovered the way to say her name in 2012. 19. Whatever, man.
So, how are you dealing with captivity, my friend?
Amazing. I'm crushing it.
Yeah, I know, other than being cock diesel now.
I've been like down to like one meal a day and a bunch of snacks. I don't know if you felt this, but I feel like doing stuff exhaustion. So when we first started off on this journey, this Rona journey, I was like making sure I ate well, fruits, vegetables, stuff to like keep me healthy in my brain. And now I'm just like, I make one meal, bunch of carbs, maybe carb on carb, and just snack around it, like a handful of jelly beans and an orange, and then I'm done.
Yeah, there's some fatigue about trying to create multiple meals. I will say that. And it's involving the whole accumulation of groceries, the cooking, the dishwashing. It's really the whole shebang.
Yeah, it's boring, and we're all turning into Jimmy Butler or Morty Seinfeld, same thing. Like, we are totally in our retirement communities being like, I can't wait to have that soup at 4:30.
We care about food. I've also started eating overnight oats, not because I even like it, but because it's a way to shovel some sustenance in my body to start the day and keep it moving. Even though there's nowhere to go or nothing to do, it's like, oh, this eliminates the need for me to actually come up with an idea.
Yeah.
Oh, I can just take this gruel and there's more of it?
I think gamers across the country are just like, see? Soylent, baby. Like, are we all turning into incel gamers?
I mean, I could use some gamer fuel right about now. Nice 3 liter of Mountain Dew.
Man, I went to,
Code Red.
Yeah, I went to a memorial service for my buddy like before COVID started, and you just made me think of it. My buddy Rich gave the most amazing speech where like one time he met up with our friend who passed away, and he was holding one empty 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew and another full bottle of Mountain Dew and just sat down with him. And my friend Rich didn't know how to address it, so he just asked him if he was thirsty. And he was like, "No, man, I'm set." He's like, "Well, I'd like some water." So he went to get a water and drank his 12-ounce water watching our other buddy down the second 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew. Insane.
When's the last time you had Mountain Dew?
The 90s, but I love it in college. But I think it is one of my favorite sodas, but I don't really drink soda.
Me neither. I can't remember exactly what it tastes like right now, but I assume it's much like riding a bicycle. That once I got a little drop of that Mountain Dew, I would immediately recognize it. But I can't visualize it.
It's sweet, obviously, but it's syrupy. It had like a denser kind of mouthfeel, I feel like. I don't know. It just felt like really cheap 7-Up with a ton more stuff in it. I loved it. It was one of my faves.
Have you ever Googled images of Mountain Dew mouth?
What is that? That sounds terrifying.
So it was marketed heavily to the South and Appalachia areas, hence the title Mountain Dew. I mean, it was targeted towards that group, and they embraced it.
Cool.
And the results of that were Mountain Dew mouth, which is described. It's horrifying. Just be prepared if you Google Mountain Dew mouth.
Tell me, what is it? Paint the picture.
It's people's ravaged, blackened teeth.
Oh, so it's like a form of decay. It's not like turning your tongue yellow.
No, it's decaying your whole mouth. Just rotted by sugar and, I guess, artificial flavors, colors, whatever you want to say is in Mountain Dew, which is, I assume, is not actually the condensation from upland areas.
Wouldn't that be code for methamphetamine mouth?
Similar.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not all Mountain Dew, although it'll give you cavities, I'm sure. But we're probably talking about meth, right?
Maybe, but
are they like cherubish gamers being with like rotted black teeth, like playing, I don't know what was popular at the time, Resident Evil?
I mean, here's just a little quote I'll read. This is from NPR, 2013. Public health advocates say soft drinks are driving the region's alarmingly high incidence of eroded brown teeth, a phenomenon dubbed Mountain Dew mouth, after the region's favorite drink.
Wow, big mood.
Whole aura.
That is terrifying, but I'm sure it happened. Yo, man, I have nothing against soda. I think it's, as we talked episodes before, I think it's one of the most delicious, amazing inventions humans have ever made. I know, we all know it's bad for us, but we didn't know how bad. And I think, water overtook soda as the bestseller, their all-time bestseller, right? At the jerk store.
Over the soda jerk?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I could use an egg cream right about now.
Dude, I was thinking about that. I was walking on 2nd Avenue, and remember there was a push to save Gem Spa and their egg creams? And even like streetwear people like designed Gem Spa streetwear to try to keep them afloat. And they're like, that's nice, but we need customers. No one buys cigarettes anymore. And I was walking by last week, and it was shuttered. And I was like, remember we were all trying to save this one shop that was kind of outdated anyway, and now every shop needs saving? It just like our priorities felt so different.
I mean, that's like the L train. That was a civic calamity. The L train is down. It's not running at night. Well, it would run every 20 minutes. Enough to make it not worth taking for the most part.
People were moving south to like Bed-Stuy and to get away from the inconvenience of the L train being interrupted.
Oh yeah, rents plunged because people didn't want to be around a non-functional train. This was also when they were speculating that it would just be shut down entirely for a year.
Yeah.
So people didn't know that they were going to keep it open, but on an abbreviated schedule. People thought it was just going to be shut down.
And just to describe this for non-New Yorkers, Hurricane Sandy, I believe, happened, flooded some electronic room and messed up, like rusted something in that serviced the L train, which is like a huge artery in New York City going from 14th Street all throughout Brooklyn in a straight line. And it's one of the biggest, most populated trains in our city. And they were threatening to either shut it down or have it like only run on weekdays indefinitely. They were like, it could take 10 years. We don't know.
I would say it's probably the most important train in terms of it being the only really popular one that runs east-west.
There's no artisanal bearded dudes making grass-fed butters without the L train. The whole culture of Williamsburg stuff hinged on this train.
Absolutely. For sure. But I just mean other trains, they may go to vital neighborhoods, but they run north-south.
Yep.
The L train is the only one that kind of helps you maneuver around between those, other than like shuttles.
Mm-hmm. So they fixed it.
And the 7.
Yeah.
So it's done. all that shit that caused people to move out, rents to go down, just a huge fiasco. Yeah, it's done. Yeah, they fixed it. Except
Cool.
no one's taking the train, but they fixed it.
It's just like the NCAA just being like, we cannot do it. Oh, we fix it. It's like we're waiting for that universal health care thing, being like, we cannot do this. There's not enough. Okay, it's done. Fine.
There is no way we can forgive your college loan. Oh yeah, we actually, that was really easy if we wanted to, but we didn't, is the thing.
We could give you tests for the coronavirus if we had enough money. People, okay, we'll just do it for you.
Look, I would love to give you universal health care, but who would pay for it? There's just, here's trillions of dollars to throw into the bonfire of Wall Street.
To be fair to the MTA, which is the worst thing, the most disappointing thing in New York, because it is our daily experience, and to have like a train not running or to not be able to take a straight line to where you want to go is a bummer and will ruin your day, and I think we undervalue it. But I think like what happened with the L train is like, oh, we've never seen this. This could not be fixed, or we could fix this. Who knows how to do this? Like, if someone asks me to rap, I can't do it. But maybe I bust out some bars and be like, done.
You definitely have bars.
Thank you. I don't know.
I'm more surprised that there wasn't a little more hoopla around the L train coming in ahead of schedule, since it was Cuomo's thing, and he's out there on TV all the time. I mean, it was mentioned, but no one really got it out there. I heard about it like a couple days later. It's like, oh, it is? Huh, wild. Granted, our priorities have shifted.
Yes.
But that was something that Cuomo could have hung his hat on a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you had to tell me about that. I had not heard it. And like, if you want to talk about like the CD side of our world, like this has huge real estate implications and property stuff. And I wonder, if I was a conspiracy theorist, like, is him keeping it under wraps, does it give somebody who has interest in this a few days of maneuvering?
Or does keeping it under wraps benefit developers who have started putting things up in areas that are off the L train?
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like, I need 48 hours to buy those 4 buildings. It's like, you got it.
No, I mean, that is worth thinking about.
Yeah.
There are certainly huge real estate companies that are in bed with the with the governor.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
that's not a weird thing to suggest.
Yeah. I mean, and it could be the other way around. Those developers could be like, yo, Cuomo, get off your ass and fix this. We need this. I'm your dude. I'm going to lose millions of dollars. Can't you just do this? He's like, all right, I'll fix it for everybody then.
Fine, we'll repair the rusted room in Canarsie. Okay, it's fixed.
Yeah.
The L train's fine again.
Yeah.
To be clear, though, the real problem with the L train was massive overcrowding.
Yes,
It
there's
wasn't,
not enough.
there was something that needed to be fixed, sure, but that wasn't the actual issue in terms of why it was awful for New Yorkers.
Oh my God,
Maybe they can-
sardines.
maybe they can run a few more trains, but it's a finite amount of trains that you can fit, because the way
Yeah.
it runs is it comes from Brooklyn and it goes and Queens, and then it goes through Manhattan and it stops at 8th Avenue. So you can only fit a certain amount of trains at those stops. So you can't just double up the amount of trains. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to me the problem has not been addressed at all anyway.
After, hopefully, when this is all done, I'm going to get a bicycle. What are you going to do? Have you considered being a bike? I mean, do you regard
I have a
bicyclists?
bike.
Oh, you do. Whoa.
I've always had a bike.
I've never seen
Go
you
get a
on
bike.
Well, just because they're dangerous and I like the subway, whatever. Yeah, I took the subway every day to studio, but now I know that's not quite the safest option. So
I'm saying right now is probably prime biking. No one's on the street.
Yeah, and I hope they make more bike lanes, but I'm going to be a biker, I think. And I know they fixed it, but there was a lot of deaths because of cars hitting bikes. But it was kind of good. This year maybe was a little bad. But I was a Subway dude. I used that thing constantly, and now I don't think I will be.
I would say that biking may have more fatalities now, but I think it's a testament to its popularity versus its rising danger. There are, of course, like too many trucks around New York City specifically because of Amazon and because people keep ordering shit instead of picking it up at the store, which just lends itself to there being mail trucks and delivery trucks everywhere. And they're the ones who impede visibility. I think that's kind of fair to say. Because generally, you know, it's not, and Ubers, like there's a really bad traffic problem in New York, and it's because of rideshare and because of deliveries. It's not because people are just cruising around the city. But
I like your first theory better, though. It's a per capita issue.
But I'm saying that's the real thing, that there's just more bikers out there. Because when I used to bike around New York a lot, there were very few bike lanes, and everyone kind of had to bike like a maniac. And it was that era when, you know, they're like fixies. It's funny, they just disappeared. People just stopped caring about bikes. But that was like an era. Like the fixies and bike messenger style and all that kind of shit. And back then, biking around, it really was sort of an aggressive way of navigating the city, where you were kind of at war with cars constantly. You'd kind of like kick off of them and, you know, you'd obey no traffic laws. And now with City Bike and bike paths, it's far more chill.
Yeah.
It's almost rare to see a biker like wilding out. Like maybe you'll see a messenger in Manhattan or something, but in general, just around the city, people are really, really chill. That culture of like cycling, like urban cycling, seems to have just evaporated.
Well, it's changed to the motorized delivery bikes, right? And those things terrify me because I can't hear them coming, and they're so fast. It's like they'll just whoosh by me. I'm like, oh, dude, I did not even see that guy, you know? I know they've tried to outlaw them, and I don't think they should. I think that is a little bit classist and maybe even racist, because a community depends on working with those bikes. And I just think that that is an industry that I did not anticipate bubbling up from the death of bike messengering.
Right, the so-called e-bike.
Yeah, and there's a bunch down where I live because of Chinatown and because of delivery, you know?
I have no problem with them. They stay in the street. I'm cool with them.
Mostly. Sometimes they don't. And I'm like, yo, I did not hear that guy creeping.
Yeah. They're not like joggers, you know, who should be incarcerated.
I got hit on a bike. I think I told you this story. That's why I stopped. I got hit by a truck who was looking for like a parking spot and made a right on a red, and I saw him coming and he hit me. It wasn't that bad. He was going pretty slow, but that's why I stopped. But I'm going to start again, man.
Yeah, I had a couple bike crashes, but they're always after drinking.
Yeah, dude.
Like, I never got in an accident. I mean, I came close, of course, via biking a lot, but it was always like, and these were not terrifying accidents or anything. It was always like, oh, I was kind of drunk and like hurt my hand.
Yeah. Are my cabs going to get diesel? Am I going to have...
You're already diesel, dude.
Well, my upper body is diesel, but I need to pedal up the Williamsburg Bridge in order to get those.
I say you get a bike today. Order one online. Get yourself a Huffy. Get out there and get to your studio. Make some art. Get away from the TV. You've watched everything.
I've seen every show except the ones I refuse to see forever.
Like, what's even left for you to watch on television? You've done it. You have achieved the grail. You've seen everything on every streaming platform.
I was like, should I do The West Wing? I'm like, I can't do it. Yeah, there's a real... everyone talks about the supply chain of food being interrupted, and we've had all of these, like, the meat plant drama that's been going on. But there's a supply chain for entertainment that's going to get interrupted very soon. That Chris Hemsworth Netflix movie was not a banger.
I wonder how many movies that have been in the pipeline for like 2 years are just being fast-tracked just to get them out. There's got to be some stuff sitting around that's junk that they're like, please get this onto Netflix and let's promote it.
This is a recognizable actor. Let's just dig up this canister and put it on Netflix, you know?
And it'll do the whole Bird Box thing and pretend people watch it.
God, that seems like a zillion years ago. But yeah, so I've been obsessed with this YouTube. I've been obsessed with YouTube since the Rona started, and I've really, really found my lane there. And it's mostly like travel stuff because I like to live vicariously. But now all my favorite travel guys and travel hosts are all sad. They're all like, hey, we're just on our balcony and everyone be safe, and I just wanted to say hello and I'm okay. And I'm like, yo, this is really sad.
I've been thinking about travel a bit in the way of, obviously it is a shitty time to travel. Like, no one wants to get on a plane. No one wants to go check out a city they've never seen and it's shut down. All that makes sense to me. I do wonder about, say, like, just driving across the country, though.
Oh, pulling a deep book, huh? Wow.
But yeah. I mean, they were saying there's a lot more, like, street racing going on because everything is empty. And I've seen people just blowing through red lights left and right.
Oh, yeah.
And saying that people set new records for, like, the Cannonball run from New York City to L.A. I'm like, just driving to Detroit, like, could be a worse time to do it. Like, fuck it. I'm going to drive to Cleveland. Nothing's there. Yeah. Now I'm going to drive to Detroit. Nothing's there. Cool. I'm going to drive to, I don't know. There's something intriguing about that. Go see an empty America? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, gas costs nothing.
Yeah. I mean, granted, no, it's not a great idea to do it, but like, there is a somewhat of an appeal. Like, if you're going to be trapped in your house, why not be trapped in a smaller container?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is just some, like, tired of New York shit.
I know. A lot more of my friends have been, like, exploring and taking photos. They've been, like, exploring different parts of New York and documenting it on IG. And, as we keep on saying, the challenge is the virus, but also the challenge is boredom. And you do what you got to do, man, and just, drive to Detroit. Like, I'm sure you're gonna see some shit, and I'm sure it's gonna be amazing. And being at home, like, they're not giving us incentive to stay because every day we look at the TV and they're like, hang in there. I'm like, that's not enough. The vaccine, the treatment looking good this week, so that gives us incentive to hang tight, but that's not enough, man.
Oh, I mean, I think we've discussed this a lot, and the conclusion that we have come to is that the double whammy of boredom and poverty and isolation, coupled with the overall governmental sentiment of fuck off, is a pretty potent recipe for discontent and unhappiness.
Yeah, I know. We'd be happier if there was some information or some help, but since we're probably not going to get that, and now we're getting blamed for being un-American, which feels amazing, doesn't it? Like, the Blue Angels told me I was an American, then our president's just like, liberate yourself. I'm like, well, what do you mean?
But I went out to watch the Blue Angels, and then I was shamed.
Yeah.
I was shamed for looking at the planes.
It's like both my hands are getting slapped, man.
I got scorned.
Yeah. I mean, don't we all have our Devin Bookers or Kendall Jenners in our lives that we can hop into our Beamer and go, like, gallivanting across Arizona?
Look, I don't know how I feel about this. Booker, I thought he gamed with Ben Simmons, and now we're finding out that
he's also gaming with Ben Simmons?
I thought there was some sort of gamer's creed. That gamers lived by a code that no one will have sex. No one. And now we see what's happening. Devin has betrayed the gamer clan.
He has betrayed an entire online community, which is living in a world that's even bigger than ours.
Picking up with Ben Simmons' ex and potentially having sex? No, that does not fall into the gamer's code.
Although they came out and said that they are just friends. They hang out in the same circles. And why can't two amazing, beautiful, handsome people go on a road trip and just be friends?
I mean, true. And you know what? That's right. That's the gamer's creed. There is no sex. So I've been wondering, has the window for gaming closed? I feel like if I decided to game, it could have been respectable about a month ago, even 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Now, with the country being liberated, if I suddenly buy a PlayStation 4, does it look like I'm trying to get into gaming versus it being a necessity?
It's too late for you to buy Yeezys, man. It's too late. You missed your window. This is some tattoo stuff, right? Like, at a certain point, if you haven't gotten a tattoo yet, you can't do it. Like, maybe the age of 25, 30. After that, like, tattoos just look weird. It's like, oh, it's my dad's birthday. I'm like, lame. You might as well go play video games, sir.
When did Redaelli get the sleeve?
Point proven. Isn't he going to get his other sleeve? That would look just crazy. I'd respect that.
No, he just has the one with the Maroon 5 tattoos, right?
Yeah. The idea of tattoos being addictive is so odd to me. One of my friends was like, how have you resisted this last 10 years of not getting any new tattoos? I have very bad tattoos. And I'm like, oh, I just haven't thought about it. I don't know.
I respect bad tattoos far more than I respect good ones. I think thoughtless tattoos are the way to go.
I agree. And if you get a really bad thoughtless tattoo that you regret, all you have to do is surround it with 9 or 10 more, and it kind of drifts away into the ether.
The system works.
Yeah, that's right.
If you have one bad basketball player, put him on the Knicks roster of bad power forwards, and now no one's mad at Bobby Portis.
No one's mad at Reggie Bullock.
They're just another overpaid forward.
Yeah, I forgot that Alfred Payton was on the team. Wait, so how do we play Animal Crossing? That's a Nintendo thing, right?
I have no idea.
As
I said, I'm trying to find out about gaming. I have no knowledge. And I know I'm resorting to some ugly stereotypes about non-sex having gamers. Totally unfair. It was just to set up this whole Booker fiasco. It's really you just don't like to see it.
Is there dating in Animal Crossing?
I don't know anything about it, man. I'm wondering if I should game. I don't have any advice on contemporary gaming culture.
I would like to, but my tendency would be, and it remains, that it is just a world that just sucks you in completely, and I would forget to feed my cats, feed myself. Like, it's just too engrossing. The world is too big.
I've toyed around with a couple emulators online to see if I really do want to get into gaming. Like, let me check out Castlevania.
That's an awesome game.
But these are old school games. Like,
oh, you mean like the old Nintendo, like 8-bit Castlevania?
Yeah. So you can try them online. You can play them. This has been around for years, like Tecmo Bowl, whatever. And they have like the DOS ones, which were like around the year 2000, like SimCity and stuff. You can play those. I was like, that's kind of enough for me. I screwed around with SimCity. I'm like, that might be enough. That could be my gaming fix. A little SimCity and for an hour and a half. Yeah. I don't know if I need to be immersed into GTA.
Yeah, and the physics, like, there's certain games, like I've tried basketball games over and over. The physics are just not right. Like, there's no way the computer can like run. We've talked about this. There's no way the computer can like predictively run routes for every player that makes any sense to me. It's like, why is that guy going into the corner? I'm like, this game is bullshit. But I think Madden might be good. I love Tony Hawk when it came out. I don't care about Tetris. This is a world that I have opted out of the gaming world, I think, officially.
Yeah, I used to play video games all the time, but it was a long time ago.
Man, let it go. like the Blue Angels, those unidentified Blue Angels in the sky. They're here one day and gone the next.
The only arcade game I was actually good at was Soul Blade.
That was a good one.
It was a good game. It was the only one I was actually good at in the arcade. And it was because my buddy, who was super into video games, who went to like Brooklyn Tech and was like on the computer science side, would go and order like games from Japan before they came out in the US. So we would just play Soul Blade all the time. So I had a huge leg up on people who were playing like on the arcade system.
Wow.
So I'd go there and like wax all the Asian kids and it felt pretty cool.
Wow.
It got a little racial.
Yeah, you really brought race into this conversation, something I wish The Last Dance would do, but you just did it here.
I gotta say, you'd have the Asian Alliance would be there lining up, and I would whip the swords around, and felt pretty badass.
The stereotype of Asians being good at video games is correct, so you did good.
No, I'm saying. My uncle is from China, and he's gnarly at video games and ping pong. Like, what do you want me to do?
Oh, yeah, you're related to Chinese people, man.
Yeah.
I always forget that. My culture is not a costume, a gaming costume, man.
My culture is not a guild. So, what's new with basketball? Any games or anything?
No, but
they're being played at Disneyland, right?
Oh yeah, that'll be safe, because what's more wholesome than Disneyland? It's like, oh, we'll be safe. We're doing it next to a ball pit. I'm like, that sounds charming. The virus stays away from cute things.
I get it though, because basically the NBA media wants to talk about shit, so they just coax people into saying something.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, maybe we'll play at Disney World. Okay, great. Now I have a tweet. I can turn that into an article, and everyone's like, NBA Disney World? Oh, let's talk about it. And it's just Adam Silver or one of his henchmen being like, I don't know, man. Can play at Epcot Center or some shit. Like, cool, that's 2 days worth of basketball media. I mean, really, what are you going to do? I think we'll let some people into practice facilities, I guess. Ooh, story.
But they have to wear masks if they're not working out. I'm like, well, but it's a practice facility, and only one player is allowed on the court at a time. I'm confused.
Only 4 people in at once, so you can't have your whole starting lineup and no scrimmaging, no one-on-one. It's like, man, no one has anything.
We got no information, man.
we got nothing.
We got nothing, and like, the NBA has their hands tied because we're in the middle of the season. And to create content when you're still in, like, with games pending and with outcomes that really affect people's legacy and pocketbooks, like, they can't really do anything.
Well, that speaks to why the Michael Jordan documentary, Save the Last Dance.
Nice. You've been holding that from me. That was good.
Just waiting on that one.
Yeah. Well done.
But that's why Michael Jordan talk has been dominating the basketball dialogue, the discourse, the Twitterverse. MJ. And that series is a huge hit. Congratulations to Michael Jordan for putting out that series and for ESPN creating it and producing it. It's a huge hit. Runaway hit. And it has, of course, made us talk about Pippen and Rodman and Jordan. And Jordan. And I saw some of the lads over on First Take talking about, would LeBron James have won a championship if he played in Michael Jordan's era? And I guess the conclusion was no, that he would not have. I didn't really follow the whole argument. But why are we still doing this? Why are we still pretending that basketball 30 years ago was the same sport?
I mean, this discussion is like watching oil separate from water, and it's creating like this weird tribal thing, right? Like, because I think on Twitter there was someone posted footage of Jordan chasing down John Stockton to block him on a layup, and everyone's like, "That's why he's the GOAT, because he's as good on defense as he is on offense." And I'm like, "That's John Stockton laying up a basketball." Have we forgotten what the hell LeBron James is? Is like 2 months all it takes for us to forget how amazing LeBron James is? Or even just like J.R. Smith. I don't know. Like all these guys would dominate John Stockton on a fast break.
When they talk about LeBron James in the 90s, I don't even want to indulge in the whole thing of like, it was too physical for him, despite the fact that he is enormous. That he's the size of Karl Malone, can jump out of the building, actually weight trains more than all these other guys do. Like it's not even worth a discussion of like the physicality in LeBron James. That is an obscene idea. Like it's obscene.
Yeah.
So I don't care about that part. But I still get hung up on the idea that, okay, we have a cell phone from 2020. Let's stack it up next to a cell phone from 1991.
Yeah.
Which one's better? Which car is better? Which computer is better? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yes, right. And influence is important. And, no iPhone without smart tax. What were they called? Motorola's, the flip phones. I mean, evolution, you cannot break that cycle. But when people pose the question, would LeBron James transported into the 90s be as good as Jordan? The answer is fuck yes. He would just dominate that entire sport, and they would have to change the rules to prevent him from winning championship after championship.
It would be like, if you want to see what it would look like, put LeBron James today against D2 players. That's what it would look like.
Right.
LeBron James in the NBA 30 years ago would look like him against D2 players.
It would have to be
best,
like...
At best, him in the G League. At best. With less shooting. With less ball handling. With less muscles. With less speed.
Yeah.
With less basketball strategy and evolution of the game.
They would have to change the rules to like the opposing team could pick one player who won't be able to shoot or pass for a quarter. We pick LeBron James. It's like, oh, well, he wasn't as good. I'm like, yeah.
It would be like dropping a Martian like into the NBA.
Yeah. And that sounds very timely. Well done. But also, it sounds crazy for us to say that, but it is literally that. LeBron James is so clearly better than Michael Jordan to me that it's not even quite a debate. It's just jokes. Like how many jokes you can make about it. We've never seen a player as good as LeBron James, and we might never. He is not only evolutionary, he's an outlier.
My thing is, if we want to say Jordan is better than LeBron, I think that's a valid position. It just has to be phrased as, in his era, Michael Jordan was better than LeBron is in his era. Stop talking about a time machine.
Right. That's fair. Like, if
let's put in someone who's as big as Karl Malone, who can shoot from 10 feet behind the NBA three-point line, can guard every position, runs point. Okay, we'll just drop him in the NBA alongside Larry Bird, who couldn't make the Memphis Grizzlies today.
Right. Yeah, I mean, think about Magic Johnson, but bigger and can jump out of the building. And can shoot better. Like, he is the prototype that all other players will be compared to. And Zion Williamson is an exciting, probably maybe, the Hall of Fame is on the table already for Zion Williamson. He's not even close to the skill set LeBron James has. He's not going to be as good as LeBron James.
No, he has no chance.
No chance.
He has absolutely no chance of being as good as LeBron James ever. There is no chance.
He doesn't have the skill set. He's not the same player.
It doesn't matter if he becomes better at shooting threes. He has no chance.
Right.
There is no one in the NBA today that has a chance of being better than LeBron James. He is a once-in-a-lifetime basketball player by definition. He is the best.
And that lifetime includes Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Like, tough luck, MJ.
Yeah.
You were the one until LeBron came along. That's cool. That's really impressive. It just happens to be LeBron. Look at how crazy Giannis is. It's not Giannis, though. Look at how amazing Curry is. It's not Curry. It's LeBron.
Yep. Did you see Giannis posted on Twitter, like, what was your all's takeaway? Yo, first of all, his English is getting great. Like, he's like, assuming he runs that account, which I think he does. Like, he's going to be dropping bars soon, but in English.
Straight boom bap.
At the the D Nice like Club Core happened, I guess, again this week, but I didn't get the invite.
Giannis is here.
But
bricking threes.
Yeah. But this whole MJ LeBron debate has turned into kind of like a generational discussion, because everybody who responded to him was just like, oh, LBJ all day. And on my feed, because I follow like writers and media people who are older, they're just like, LeBron James, Stephen A. Smith, just like, LeBron James is not as good as Michael Jordan, Skip Bayless, who's making all of his money just criticizing LeBron James. And it's turning into a generational thing.
Absolutely. When you saw the comments to Giannis, asking a question about that documentary, everyone was just like, LeBron's better.
Yeah.
There was a few people who didn't. But the general consensus amongst people who follow Giannis was like, of course it's LeBron.
Yeah.
And, we talked a lot about The Last Dance and whether it's an effective hagiography for Michael Jordan. And at this point, I don't see thus far it shifting that narrative. It certainly brought Jordan's defenders out, gave them something to root for, to hang their hat on. But you made this point. At some point, you got to show him play basketball. And you got to show him play against Larry Bird. And we're like, look, I get that Larry Bird is like a top 15 player, a top 10 player of all time. He was an icon in his era. But you look at him and you're like, that guy is Joe Ingles right now at best. I'm sorry, he can't dribble. Yeah. He has short arms. He couldn't defend threes. He couldn't defend fours. What would he do?
He doesn't see the court. He's slow.
No, but great passer, great shooter. Okay, he's Joe Ingles without the defense. He's Doug McDermott. And I'm not saying that Larry Bird, if raised today, would not end up being a better player than he is. But that version that we saw, the actual Larry Bird, is not Luka Doncic. The actual Larry Bird is a guy who couldn't dribble and a guy who couldn't defend Anthony Davis or Paul George. Who does he guard in the entire NBA? Stretch fours? Couldn't guard anyone.
This is pushing it, but players like Larry Bird might not be quite starters automatically in the modern NBA. And I know that sounds blasphemous, and we love to revel in this, but like, he lacks a skill set.
That's all I'm saying.
He's a unitasker.
You time machine Larry Bird now into in his short shorts and his mullet. Oh, it's Larry. Like, that guy is not making an NBA roster.
And even you take the other things, like, he's always hurt and he's a hothead who's constantly punching people. We cannot play him. He's a liability, man.
But this does not make Larry Bird any less great in his era. That's the point that we're trying to make here.
Definitely.
Stop doing the time machine. Stop saying, well, if LeBron played with Michael Jordan, he'd never win a championship. Yeah, bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure him with, like, Sean Kemp, they would have really struggled with the Bulls.
Right, yeah. And it's a language thing that we've developed on Twitter that's annoying, and that seems to be the place where we debate this the most. And we should try to get, like, a boomer on Cookie soon. Just to bounce ideas off of. Not argue, but, like, totally...
To humiliate.
Yeah, yes. But I think, like, I find myself reading a lot of these discussions, and it's the same thing over and over. It's just like, Jordan's the GOAT, you're a moron if you think otherwise. I'm like, and then that's kind of where it ends. So it kind of turns into a Tupac versus Biggie debate, and it turns into, like, that's not real hip-hop kind of thing. And that is fun for the interns as Gruel, but it lacks the kind of nuance that, like, what it takes to talk about, frankly, what Larry Bird is, or what Kevin McHale is, or what Bill Laimbeer is.
I just think these conversations need to always have the underpinning of in their era, for their time. Mm-hmm. That's it to me. Mm-hmm. Let's stop pretending as if you can just warp people around and the league is the same. It is a different sport. Not to say that humans evolve like technology, but basketball has. Sports science has.
Yeah.
Like they are different human beings.
Yeah. And
Than played back then.
And LeBron James is an old school type player. When I think of great players now who are unrecognizable in the 90s, I think of Steph Curry. And Steph Curry is such a unique, and Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons was Magic Johnson, my bad. But Steph Curry is an evolution beyond LeBron James, but he's not as good or useful on the court. LeBron James is just a nuclear weapon, but he reminds me of the 90s, and to hear pushback from people who lived through the Jordan era against LeBron James is curious to me because, like you said, he's the accumulation of Magic Johnson, Karl Malone, and Michael Jordan into one. We recognize these pieces. Steph Curry is kind of unrecognizable, right?
I agree with that because Michael Jordan was not some muscle-bound freak. It wasn't as if he and Scottie Pippen were these Adonises from a different era of gigantors, where everyone was just built like a different style person. If they were those same players but looked like Rick Mahorn, but they weren't. They were skinny. So the idea that LeBron James, who is as cock diesel as you,
huge,
just a beast, would struggle against the physicality of guys who are smaller than him, like he was the size of John Sally. He's 6'8", like 260. Like, get out of here. Like that. I'm just not here for the rewriting of history and like the fictionalizing of what the league was like. And that same topic, well, the Bulls couldn't beat the physicality of the Pistons, so they lifted weights and then they kicked their ass. No, they kicked their ass in 4 games because they were a lot better.
Yeah.
They weren't tougher. They were a lot better at basketball. They blew them the fuck out. They swept them because they were a 63-win team.
Yo, Horace Grant was really good. He was a really excellent player. And he pops up in maybe hour 3 or hour 4 of this documentary. But to do a disservice to that entire organization and to Jerry Krause, who built that team, is really funny. And I joked on Twitter today saying, this documentary is from a worldview of a 14-year-old. Being like, well, what about all the complexities? Do you know where your food comes from? Do you know how we pay for the lights? Do you know what technology is and your video games? It's like, slamming and jamming, baby. He slammed harder than you. I'm like, yes, you're young. You'll learn eventually, like, everything's complicated.
So the Bulls won 63 games and the Pistons won 50. 13-game difference in the standings. Bulls beat them 4-0. Why? Because they lifted weights.
I mean, recency bias even here, right? Because I believe Isaiah Thomas has a winning record against Jordan, and they beat them over and over until they didn't. But the last one, as like a soldier that falls on his sword, that's the last memory you have. And it's called The Last Dance for stupid reasons and not like the really complicated reasons. And I don't know how they're going to frame the ending of this. Are we going to discuss his failures in Charlotte? Are we going to discuss the Wizards? Are we going to discuss the memes?
Well, whatever he wants, man.
Yeah. So I got offered the whole series the other day from my brother who has it all. And no spoilers, but he's like, I didn't tell him anything, or he didn't tell me anything. And I was just like, this thing is hilarious, right? He was like, oh, it's as bad as you think. Like, this is just Michael Jordan feeling himself. So I'm excited to see what the rest of the 6 hours has in store for us.
I would say, just going back to the Pistons Bulls thing, because we've talked about this, Doc, quite a bit, but the idea of earning your stripes in your conference and then winning a title, I think a lot of that was based on Jordan's, mythical Jason-like journey.
Mm-hmm. Not Jason Tatum. Jason,
like an Argonaut, if you will.
Right.
But that idea that you vanquish the team who was atop the conference and then move your way up. And LeBron did that too. You know, LeBron
yeah.
had to beat the Pistons, and then he got stuck
Warriors.
on the Celtics, and then he beat the Celtics. And it's almost an in-conference thing. And I think that's one of the reasons people didn't quite respect the Warriors. And I actually think justifiably, even though they were that good. They didn't need to do that. I do get why there was skepticism towards the Warriors, because they didn't go through the Spurs. They didn't beat Lob City in the playoffs, even though they totally owned them in the regular season. We saw them beat like Houston before they were good. We saw them.
I disagree
beat
there.
Memphis.
But sorry to interrupt. But
No, go ahead.
Houston was a threat. Houston would beat every other team if it wasn't for the Warriors.
Yes,
so,
but sorry. But
Go ahead.
I'm talking about their rise. The Houston teams they beat were challengers to them and were great opponents and were super tough and took them to 7 games.
that's fair. Like, yeah, the Dirk Mavs weren't a thing.
But they didn't beat them either. The Warriors didn't go through the Dirk Mavs. They didn't.
That's what I mean.
They didn't go through
right.
Lob City. They didn't go through the Spurs.
Right.
They just weirdly, just by kind of a fluke, avoided those other dynastic teams in the Western Conference. So it never felt like they took down the Western King and then rose. All of a sudden, they went from losing in the first round of the playoffs to being the champs the next season.
Yeah. And I agree, and I want to bring up the noise here though, because the Spurs, you could almost say the same thing about the Spurs. Like their competition in that era, they didn't unseed anybody. I have to go back, but
Come on, they went to war with the Lakers.
Was that a war? They swept them, right?
But I'm saying over the decades, like the Spurs, that Spurs team. I know what you're saying, but it was still the same guys that we knew as like the dynasty. Like Kawhi was different, but it was still Duncan. It was still Parker. It was still Manu. We knew they'd gone to war with the Suns, the war with the Mavs, war with the Lakers. Like they had earned their battle scars.
But isn't this rewriting it in a Last Dance kind of way? Because we mentioned war with that, but the early Duncan teams swept the Kobe Shaq Lakers. But like the symbol of the Kobe Shaq Lakers was big, and that's what I get you when you say war. And I think Warriors fans would be like, "Yo, it wasn't as easy as you say. There were some good teams, but the mythology wasn't quite built up by the media about these good teams that were a real challenge, But they provided.
But there really weren't though. Those first 2 years, that was kind of the problem. And again, you play who's in front of you. It was not their doing. It just happened that way.
And we didn't manufacture anybody to be that,
Well, one fluke that made this occur was that the Spurs had some injuries, I believe. Or it was the Clippers who had injuries. I forget. No. This was the year after they smoked Miami. The Spurs were coming off of an annihilation in the finals of Miami. But they had some injuries and stuff. So they ended up playing the Clippers in the first round. And remember, it was like an insane series. And the Clippers won in 7 games, and Chris Paul was crying. It basically felt like a Western Conference final in terms of the caliber of the two teams. They beat the team that smoked the Heat. Remember that was a blowout series. The one with the Spurs won in 6 games and like just crushed the Heat.
Yeah.
And that team lost in the first round to the Clippers instead of ever playing Golden State. Then that Clippers team lost to Houston before Houston was that good because of the Josh Smith game.
Yeah, that was incredible.
So it was great basketball, but it ended up kind of making the Warriors' road less impressive optically.
This reminds me of every boxing discussion I've ever had with my boxing friends, and this is the problems with the sample size and the transitive property, meaning like, oh, well, we never got to fight B, but A beat B and we beat A, therefore we're better than B, and that's all we can do because, as we said with Michael Jordan, different eras, we can't transplant this Warriors team even 3 years before. They probably would have smoked everybody.
Oh, I agree with that. I am not diminishing how good that Warriors team was. That second year, I thought they were the best team in the history of the NBA. I'm just pointing out that they didn't have that mythology of slaying the king and being like, the king is dead, long live the king.
Yeah.
Because that first year, after losing in the first round the prior season, they beat the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, and the Rockets. And this was before the Rockets were they were very good.
They're very good.
But they were, they were a 56-win team, very tough.
Yeah.
But the Warriors had won 67 games. It was not like they were a powerhouse who was getting taken down. It was kind of the Rockets with Harden still being formed.
Yeah, and I think the Warriors' legacy suffers because they were a finesse team. I think people still, as a whole, don't really accept the three-point shot as a strategy. TNT, and Charles Barkley, etc. And I think people recognize the greatness of that team, but there's always a but. And people have been coming after Draymond Green quite a bit of his own doing because he's been very vocal. And, immediately after you have the take of Draymond Green invented small ball, you have, but he's beatable. He's so beatable. Here is examples where you just solve that issue. And I'm like, yo,
nah.
Do we forget how good they were? They were really exciting and good.
But they also didn't do themselves any favors because the next season when they were 73-9 and the best team of all time, had the best offensive rating, top 5 defense, they were just ridiculously good. Mm-hmm. They smoked the Rockets in the first round. They beat the Blazers. Wait. Sorry. Then
rested.
We were talking about something. But then they had that incredible series where they had to come back and beat OKC.
That was wild.
So
yeah.
The problem was they were down 3-1. They wrestled a victory over a team that was great and then lost to the Cavs.
LeBron James, man. That was a crazy series.
If you look at their legacy, if they had won that series and beaten LeBron with Kyrie and with Kevin Love after beating Durant and Westbrook, we'd talk about them differently. But they came up short.
And then conversely to that, we talk about LeBron James differently if he loses that series. But he won that series, and then we have the last dance.
The last dance never gets made.
Yeah, exactly.
Other news.
What's up?
We talked about Isaiah, an incredible Knicks executive.
Incredible, just incredible.
And there's good news for another top-notch
Lay
Knicks
this on
suit. Me. Looks like your guy, Scott Perry, will live to wheel and deal another day at Madison Square Garden.
Scott Perry! I'm happy with that. Whatever. I got nothing against Scott Perry. The Knicks have a lot of decisions to make with a lot of expiring guaranteed, not guaranteed contracts. And obviously they're terrible, relegated. So this is a big offseason for them. I'm fine with Scott Perry, man.
Why?
He's okay.
Is he?
Because I don't think he's making all of the decisions himself. I think Dolan has a say. I think Leon Rose is going to have a say. And maybe the right GM replacement isn't out there for them currently. I don't think Scott Perry is at fault at the things that happened with Durant and Kyrie, even though the Porzingis thing looked terrible. That seems to be a Mills action too. I think Scott Perry's a meat shield.
I think there's truth to that. And you are 100% correct in that we don't actually know who is responsible for what. And if you look at Perry's track record, that applies everywhere.
Yeah.
There may be people who know the truth. Perry knows the truth. Maybe the Knicks know the truth. But we don't publicly know who did what in Orlando, who did what in Sacramento. Yeah. Is he responsible for good draft picks or bad ones? Good signings or bad ones? There is a fog of war around lower executives in offices that have multiple voices. Same thing with Mark Eversley, who was in Philadelphia and is now the GM in Chicago.
Right.
Who knows? I don't know.
Right.
He could have been the guy who's like, I demand you draft Matisse Thybulle. I demand you select Waluigi.
Waluigi. The GOAT.
But those could have been all him. Or he could have fought relentlessly against those picks. Who freaking knows? He could have said, no, max out Tobias. That could have been all him. Let Butler walk. Who freaking knows? So there is a spongy sort of, interpretation to what Perry has done as an executive with the Knicks. And that is worth taking into account. I also think, though, there is a benefit to getting people from outside of the building to clear the decks. And I think that's what worries me about Perry remaining. It's not that he is even terrible at his job. It's that it indicates there is still a vestigial brain trust and a sense of ancestry within the Knicks organization that I think should be severed. I think you want to say, Leon Rose, bring in a new guy from the Cavs, hire a new GM, new front office. And I'm looking at this like, same GM, Allen Houston's there, Mills is still filtering around the building, Dolan's still there. Man, this looks like the same Knicks front office to me, but with Leon Rose in there. Because you're not showing me anything different.
You're making a mistake by assuming that the Knicks are in the NBA. They're still not in the NBA.
I keep doing that.
No, but like there's a truth to that because they are not behaving that differently. They wanted the most Knicksian thing to have happened was Perry's dream and the fans' dream was to get a hurt Durant and Kyrie Irving. They freed up space for them. Knicks fans and the front office want stars. I was glad that they didn't get them. I was not happy about the Blue Angels that they did get, but I think them behaving like this, right, so the smart thing, if they wanted to get back into the NBA, would be to get a point of view in there and start now. The process starts immediately, but this is not how the Knicks operate. Mills is still haunting the corridors of MSG. Allen Houston is still there. This is the same thing, man.
I know. I'm just imagining Leon Rose walking. Hey, Steve, how are you? Good.
How can you be here and there at the same time?
Steve, like, so what are you guys working on? Well, what's I don't know. I got some ideas, some suggestions. Just maybe jump on an email, a Zoom conference, maybe.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of like moving up on the draft. He's like, no, I think we should see if Andre Drummond is available.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that Dolan won't clear it out when they talk to David Griffin. He's like, I'm interested. I would take over the Knicks. And like, you can't get rid of any of these guys. He's like, oh, no. I'm not doing that.
I mean, Dolan's biggest Achilles, his Achilles heel is his loyalty, which makes him like a virtuous friend. But when you're running a business, it could hurt you.
And you realize why someone like Leon Rose takes this position, not only for the fat paycheck, but because this helps his power. And he knows what he is. He's an agent. He's going to go over here and be an executive. There's people around that he can, wipe the poop on. Like, oh, this got fucked up. And Leon Rose like, dude, I told you, come on, man. You know how these guys are.
Yeah.
It's the Knicks. Come on.
Yeah.
And they can go back to running his agency with even more power. Yeah. This isn't his career. This is not his actual job. If you are David Griffin, you're like, no, this is what I do. I'm a GM. Like, these are the jobs that I want to have, and this is my livelihood. If I get fired from being a GM, I don't have another job.
True.
Rose doesn't care. He can just go back to CAA.
Definitely. And to your point, it leaves to be seen what kind of influence Rose has because since he's been at the job, he's like, everyone stays. I'm like, okay, if that's your vibe.
And Phil Jackson was like, I'll take that paycheck because I'm Phil Jackson.
Yeah.
I don't need to work.
Yeah.
And this will not define me at all. It does not have any effect on my life. I'll take your millions of dollars and get back in the game and then bounce. Yeah,
Isaiah Thomas, same thing. And I think the chatter that we're hearing from the Garden, the little intrigue is, they're going to stay with Frank. They're going to maybe give up on Kevin Knox, which is so dumb because you drafted him for his potential, knowing he was a project, and for his age. He's still really young. Don't bail on him yet. He has no value. And I think the chatter is, instead of what I think would be logical, would be to, and this is how out of touch I am, I'm relegated in relegation. It's relegation-ception. Anyway, I think they should prioritize the draft, but instead all the chatter is that they have enough assets to get a superstar. I don't know what star is available. Exactly. Andre Drummond might opt out, and we can just sign him for money. I don't know what they're thinking.
I just don't know because the season's not over yet. So even coming up with a strategy about who will be available, I mean, we don't know.
This is so Knicksian, right? They want a star.
Just a good player.
Yeah.
Actually, facts.
Yeah.
That would be great. Adding a good player would be amazing. Yeah. It's a good strategy. I approve.
But you know it's going to be Blake Griffin. It's like, oh, yeah, we got Blake. He's a perennial all-star.
But what if you could put Blake with Drummond?
Reggie Jackson, is he available?
But that's my thing. Yes, they are correct. Getting a star, that'd be a really good move. Absolutely acquiring a star. But which really good star is there? Are you going to get LeBron? You're going to get Anthony Davis? You're going to get Kawhi Leonard? You're going to get Ben Simmons? You're going to get Joel Embiid? Like, where's your offer?
It's like a tier 2, tier 3 kind of star outside of the all-star conversation, right?
Gordon Hayward music.
Dude, exactly like Gordon Hayward. Victor Oladipo.
A star that's a lot like Gordon Hayward.
Wow, Gamer City at MSG. Let's go. The Gamer's Creed takes over the Garden Enforcement. I mean, did they consider Julius Randle a budding star? I think so. I
think they did.
Yeah, for sure. Like, his numbers looked similar to these all-stars. I'm like, wow, these guys, man. I wish they listened to Cookies Hoops.
I am very conflicted about the potential idea of trading for Chris Paul if I'm a Knicks fan. Because he's old. He makes a lot of money. He's also one of my favorite players of all time. And I think Chris Paul is still incredibly good and automatically kind of makes your team decent. You just put Chris Paul out there, like, your team's fine.
Maybe. I mean, the timelines don't match up, but they're not thinking of timelines. So they think maybe Chris Paul and Mitch Robinson in the pick and roll can get them to the playoffs, which might be true.
Facts.
Yeah.
I think it probably does. But also, who cares?
Yeah, right.
Who cares? Does that team beat Boston, Philly, Toronto, Milwaukee? No. And then Chris Paul is old as shit. So
you're right.
I don't know. I love Chris Paul, and it would be a joy to watch him play in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
But I don't get that is necessarily a great strategy to turning the franchise around. That seems like yet another quick fix.
Yeah, and the first ask OKC would make is Mitchell Robinson. And then they just go down the line of the players, being like, give us 4 of your best players.
Oh, they're getting Mitch in that trade no matter what.
Totally. So, and then they're going to draft Weissman. And this is like just moving pieces in place. Like, this is just filling boxes instead of, like, reevaluating what game you're playing.
I mean, I don't know. The Knicks may think enough of Mitch because him and Chris Paul would be a ridiculously formidable pick and roll combination.
Yeah.
So maybe it would be like your draft pick. It would be...
That's tough. Tough. We'll see where the draft pick ends up.
I think it's like your pick and then some salaries to match, like a Randall.
And RJ's gone, right? Or
for Chris Paul, probably not.
Yeah, maybe. Taking on his salary is big enough. But why would OKC do this? They're a good team.
I don't know why they would either.
And Chris Paul
and they have a shit ton of draft picks.
Yeah.
They don't need picks necessarily.
Yeah. And Chris Paul has 3 or 4 good years left in him, I think.
Man, I wish Philly had traded for him. When he was a dead contract.
Oh, Philly is so close. I mean, just keeping Jimmy Butler would just change the whole dynamic of the league.
They could have figured out a way, I believe, to have Butler, Chris Paul, Embiid, and Simmons. That would have been insane.
But Butler and Chris Paul don't remind Elton Brand of Elton Brand.
That is true. Other lightweight basketball news is that the NCAA has finally started muttering about their counterstrike against the NBA, luring top high school talent to play in the G League for real salaries. The NCAA is now considering letting players earn money for endorsements, for being in video games, for selling merch, things like that. Is this enough? Is this real?
Well, as far as I know, no details have been released, but they're saying in 2022 they're open to the idea of athletes searching for external revenue. And the chatter is according to the New York Times, which just had the beginnings of this story, is that top players, let's say you are Lonzo Ball, or my bad, LaMelo Ball, you can earn upwards of like $1 million if you're marketable. Skeptics would say the NCAA is going to figure out a way to make this an awful deal for their athletes and to maybe even create a inferior scenario than the one they already have.
I don't really know how you would shoehorn this into their current policies at all, because, of course, if you're Nike or Adidas or Reebok and you want a program to do well, you could just offer endorsements. You know, like, okay, we're an Adidas team. We're just going to offer $1 million a year to 5 of the best high school kids. Cool, here's your sneaker endorsement if you come to this school.
Yeah, and I get confused because Nike...
Because they could be contingent, of course, on where you go. Yeah. Because in the same way, sneaker companies pay more for a player who gets drafted by the Miami Heat or the Chicago Bulls or the Lakers or the Knicks than if you're drafted by the Spurs.
Yeah, and, you know, Nike pays for the Oregon Ducks football uniforms, and I believe they help out with the design of maybe their basketball team. I'm not sure. So it makes sense that it would just cross over into them investing in players and getting a jump on brands when these players are in college. When does this end? Like, let's say they do this. Are we going into AAU in high school at that point?
Yeah, that's what I don't really understand, how this works, because couldn't someone find a very mediocre prospect in terms of NBA talent, but a good college one, and someone from a local car dealership be like, hey, I'm going to put you in commercials, I'll pay you $20K.
Right.
And it's basically the same as a booster just giving you money in a bag.
Yes. And you could either be an Austin Rivers or you could be a LeBron James. And how do you put a dollar amount onto a prospective brand? And I say Austin Rivers because he was the number one player in high school. And he went to Duke with the promise of being a number one overall pick and a perennial all-star. You know, he was Doc Rivers' son, etc. But he ends up being a very useful role player. And LeBron James ends up being my president. And it's a much different thing. And I think big money corporations like Nike and Adidas and Yeezy have incentive to gamble. Like, how do you control that? How do you prevent athletes from signing like long-term deals that could be not beneficial to them or very beneficial?
See, I'm still stuck on the bit players, where you're a guy you're a rich dude who went to East Tennessee State, and you still live wherever the hell East Tennessee State is. I'm going to guess it's in East Tennessee. Don't know that for a fact. But you live there. You own a car dealership. You're rich as shit. You're like, yeah, I want this program to go back to the tournament. I want this team to make the Elite Eight. Okay. You find 3 guys who are not the same players who go to Duke or North Carolina, but they're the guys who might go to South Carolina. They're guys that might go to Clemson. You're like,
Doink.
You're like, I'll give you each $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, and you're going to endorse my car dealership. And you put together 3 guys who are, top 200 prospects that would never go to East Tennessee State, but now they go there, and all of a sudden you're building a program.
You kind of ran over my bad joke of Doik University, Coach J, the Blue Angels from Doik University. Anyway, I had to get it out.
All right, I'm not mad.
Sorry.
But that's what I'm saying, is that it's not just the big dogs. It's every step of the way. Again, I'm fine with that. I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter to me at all if a drywall kingpin decides to turn LIU into a minor powerhouse. Like, go nuts.
They should just do it, and how they do it is going to be scrutinized. But I think there's like 14-year-old professional golfers. Like, our society can handle this. And our society will check itself. There's going to be cops everywhere being like, you can't do this, you can't do this. And we're going to level to, the water will level to a way that will be acceptable for everyone. And they should do this right now.
Yes. My general belief on this is, yeah, go apeshit.
Yep.
But just open the floodgates and see what happens.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, pay guys off. Endorsements, sure.
Yeah.
And then, I guess Vegas casinos did it. Interesting. Getting some dicey results, no pun intended.
I mean, the pro tennis players are super young, right? How old was Jennifer Capriati? Like 16? Wasn't she Nike?
They're 16. Baseball players are 16.
Yeah, the baseball draft professional rules are different.
And you go to Europe, soccer, basketball, you can be 14 years old.
Yeah, they should just do this. And it's funny how it's sort of like, I forget when Apple took InfoWars off their platform, then everybody just did it in the same day. It feels like this. The G League was like, oh, we're willing to pay these young players. And NCAA is like, yes, so are we. We've been waiting for this. We're not the bad guy if we even think we are. It's just like logical. It's
a lot like bars in New York City right now selling beer out of windows. You can't do that. You can't just sell people beers to walk around. What are you talking? Oh, no, we're all doing that now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so now we can do that? Are we going to go back to ticketing people for having a beer in the street after we went through coronavirus?
Yeah.
We're gonna go back to that shit? You get $100 ticket for drinking a glass of wine in a park?
Yeah. Potheads everywhere are so pissed, if they got pissed and if they were not super chill at all times. They would be pissed.
I'm just like, oh, so it's totally cool if everyone in New York just gets a beer and walks around with it. We now can establish that just like in, I don't know, Barcelona or Rome or any number of cities across Berlin, any number of cities across the globe, that drinking a beer on the street is okay. Yeah. It's not going to cause massive civic destruction.
Although in Asia, in some cities, if you break out like a little sip of water from your bag, someone runs up to you and it's like, please, no drinking in the subway. You're not allowed to do any of that stuff.
That's just scold culture.
I mean, it's very clean and very efficient, so I don't know.
That's why I had to take them down in Soul Blade, buddy.
That big L train energy, man.
Yeah, man. So we take some days off now, but we'll see you guys next week with more episodes of Cookies Hoops, the world's most influential basketball podcast. Oh, there's a new drop tomorrow.
Ooh.
You always got to announce that at an hour and 27 minutes in for the real heads.
We just want to lead into the drop more.
Reward those who want it more.
We've been lifting those merch weights.
But yeah, very cool drop tomorrow. Very limited. So I'm not saying that until probably I'm saying it's gonna be gone. Like there's not that many. Anyway, cookies. Cookies.